I was lying on a cold, hard stone slab. Above me, a pendulum was slowly swinging back and forth over my torso. I could hear voices trying to communicate with me, though I couldn't tell where they were coming from. Over and over, they asked, "Are you dead?" I'm Beth Ann Campbell, and this is Something Weird Happened Here. Welcome to Something Weird Happened Here, the podcast for people who love a twisted tale but aren't afraid to poke at it a bit. We share stories that are postmarked peculiar and then explore the story with curiosity and an open mind. Stay tuned after the show to find out how to submit your strange saga, and maybe we or you will share it on air. Now let's get started, because no matter where you are in this mysterious world, something weird happened here. Today I'm going to be reading one of my reader submissions. If you out there have a twisted tale that you would like to share on the air, go to bethancampbell.com/somethingweird for the link to send us your story. This tale is postmarked New York State, USA. Subject line, "Are you dead?" This story was submitted by Corinne through my website form. Now, Corinne did indicate an interest in coming on the show, so hopefully we can connect and I can get her on here to share her story in more detail. In the meantime, here's her submission. And I just note, I may have made some very minor edits for clarification or for length, but most of it's pretty spot on. Corinne, if you're listening, you are an excellent writer in your submission. So Corinne says, "I've always felt a connection to something beyond this world. I'm highly intuitive, and sometimes I joke that it's my ancestors speaking through me. I can usually read people within minutes of meeting them, and I've had several experiences that felt clairvoyant or paranormal, often through vivid dreams or visions. One night in particular stands out more than any other. I knew I was dreaming, but it was the kind of dream that feels completely real. I was lying on a cold, hard stone slab, and above me, an object was swinging slowly back and forth over my torso. At the time, I was confused, but looking back, I believe it was a pendulum. I could hear voices trying to communicate with me, though I couldn't tell where they were coming from. Over and over, they asked, "Are you dead?" I got up from the slab and found myself standing in front of a mirror. When I looked at my reflection, I didn't recognize myself. My hair was long and gray, my face hollow, and my eyes, normally green, were cloudy blue with a milky overlay. Again, I heard the question, "Are you dead?" I remember thinking, "Am I dead?" I became overwhelmed with fear and intense cold, colder than anything I'd ever felt. At that point, I woke up in my bed. My room was so cold I could see my breath as I exhaled, relieved it had only been a dream. Somehow, despite being terrified, I fell right back to sleep, and the dream resumed. This time I was standing in the same room, trying to make sense of what had just happened, when I heard the familiar sound of dishes being loaded or unloaded into a dishwasher. As I turned toward the noise, I found myself at the bottom of the stairs in the home I grew up in. I slowly walked upstairs, cautious but curious. When I reached the top and saw who was in the kitchen, I was stunned. It was my Uncle Thomas, who had passed away several years earlier from colon cancer. I called out to him. He paused and looked around as if he had heard something but couldn't tell where it came from. I called again several times, but each time he reacted the same way, unable to see me. What I remember most clearly is how I felt in that moment. I wasn't scared or sad. I was simply overjoyed to see him again, and he looked healthy, nothing like he had before he passed. There was so much I wanted to say to him, but could only call his name. Suddenly, everything became overwhelmingly warm and bright. The light was so intense that I could only make out his silhouette as he suddenly stopped what he was doing, walked down the hallway, and paused at my sister's room. I followed, but he didn't seem aware of me and closed the door behind him. I opened it. The light inside was even brighter, and I could feel its warmth. As my eyes adjusted, the light began to fade, and I saw my uncle walk through my sister's closet door. I opened it. The light inside was even brighter, and I could feel its warmth. As my eyes adjusted, the light began to fade, and I saw my uncle walk through my sister's closet door. He wasn't alone, though. Someone was with him. Just as the closet door closed behind them, I woke up. Moments later, my phone rang. It was my dad calling to tell me that my Aunt Nancy, who had been battling breast cancer, had just passed away. I've never been able to shake the feeling that what I experienced wasn't just a dream. I believe I witnessed my aunt crossing over, and then my uncle was there to meet her and guide her into the light. End of story. Wow. First of all, thank you, Corinne, for taking the time to share. This is a very personal story, and like I said before, so well written. Thank you. Second, very sorry for your losses. And third, I have so many questions, so I hope we can get you on the show. One question I would ask is about the part of the dream when you're on the slab. Like, what do you think that represented? Was it a manifestation based on you being like close to the veil? I mean, what do you think? Now, I always ask my story submitters what other people in their lives think. And Corinne said this. I did share the experience with my mother, but she advised me to keep it private. In her view, it wasn't something that should be shared with the rest of the family. While I respected her reasoning, it was difficult to suppress the feeling that I had witnessed something extraordinary and something I instinctively wanted to share. I did tell a few close friends who were aware of my gifts, and they were very supportive and helped me work through it. Okay, so now I really want you on the show because I want to talk about your gifts. I have had a lot of guests so far on this show who have had abilities of, who have abilities of some sort of a psychic nature. And I am learning so much from them. And of course, they have also stories associated with those abilities as well. Now, I will say, I don't believe that most dreams are prophetic. I think they're mainly psychological in nature. However, I do keep that door open for other scenarios like communication with relatives who have passed on. I have a dream tale of my own to share, but before I do that, let's take a little commercial break here. This is not anybody who's a paid sponsor, but I do want to call out a couple of people, places, and things that I am loving. First of all, to Stone Soup Books in Waynesboro, Virginia, USA, for accepting my paranormal mystery Case of the Demon Drums for their bookshelf. Yes, I am in a physical bookstore and already even sold a copy. I'm so stoked. So thank you so much. This is an amazing bookstore. If you can, go out and give them some love on Instagram or Facebook and tell them Beth Ann Campbell sent you. And one more quick recommendation for the Fluency language app. Yes, Fluency, Floonzy. I have been wanting and trying to learn Spanish for years. I took an adult ed class a few years ago and it was okay. I didn't really feel like I learned much. And I've used at least a half a dozen online apps, including Duolingo, Babbel, Pimsleur, Practica, a couple others. Nothing against those apps, but they just weren't for me. I had kind of tapped out at that point and I just figured, you know what? I'm too old. I'm just never going to learn another language. It's not going to work for me. And then it just so happened that a distant connection of mine on Facebook is the mastermind behind the Fluency app. And one day he put out this casual post, hey, here's this app if you're interested, and had a link to the app. And the rest, as they say, is history. I love this app. I really do. And before you say, oh, well, he's your friend, of course you love it. No, he's not my friend. I mean, I like the guy, but I've never met him in person. We hardly interact. I don't think I've had any interaction with him since before COVID until this point. I just happen to be connected to him from like years ago. Now, the Fluency guy says that the target audience for this app is middle schools, high schools, and a few crazy people like him. That's his quote. And like me, apparently, because this app is perfect for my Gen X mind. I do about 15 minutes of lessons every night before I go to bed. And by the way, I'm learning Latin American Spanish, but you can also learn Spain Spanish. It's a little different, Italian, French, and a bunch of others. Anyway, check it out. Fluency, Floonzy. Love it. So good. Okay, back to our topic of dream visitations and other sleep paranormal stuff. So, yes, I have my own tale. Not long after my mom passed away, this is in 2008, I had a dream that was so vivid, I would swear it was real. And this doesn't happen to me a lot with like super vivid dreams where I really, it feels real. So this was maybe 3 or 4 months after she died. In my dream, I was walking into this house and I noticed that I could see in the back, there was a barbecue party happening in the backyard. So I stepped out into this nice suburban backyard filled with people. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I don't know whose house this was. I didn't recognize it as any house I've ever lived in. Suddenly, in this backyard, I see my mom standing about 20 feet away. She's just gabbing with people like she did when she was alive. She's very much a social butterfly for sure. In my dream, I knew she had died, but there she was. Like I recognized how monumental this moment was. I was very overcome with emotion in my dream and kind of started moving towards her. She saw me and she came over to give me a hug and she was very casual, like, "Oh, hi, honey, glad you could make it." Like, just like going about my day. I hugged her harder than I have ever hugged anyone for a very long time. And I just remember smelling her as we embraced. Now, she didn't smell bad. My mom had a particular smell, as a lot of you probably have a loved one that you associate with a particular smell. It's not a bad smell. It's just, it was like a mom smell, right? Well, she had the mom smell, and I just remember smelling it so hard when I was hugging her and just kind of breathed it in as we embraced. And then we parted, and she went back to her party and her socializing, and that's all I remember. Except that when I woke up, I really believed that I had hugged my dead mother. I felt her love like she was still there. So, yeah, I keep that door open on things that can happen when you sleep. So there you go. Thank you, Corinne, for inspiring that memory for me. And now I'm going to ask all of you out there, have you ever had strange, vivid dreams about your loved ones who are no longer in the mortal plane? I'd love to hear from you about your story and your experiences. Again, go to bethannecampbell.com/something weird for the link to submit your story. And if you're watching the video, you can wait for the credits. You'll see the link there. Thanks again, Corinne, and thank you, listeners out there. I appreciate you. Until next time, stay skeptical, but don't run toward the noise. Thanks for joining this episode of Something Weird Happened Here. If you have a twisted tale that you witnessed, experienced, or heard from a reliable source, go to bethannecampbell.com/something weird to learn more and submit your story. If your tale is twisted enough, we'll share it on air during one of our episodes and might even invite you to be a guest on the show. And we're not picky. Your Something Weird Happened Here could be paranormal, psychic, UFOs, near-death experiences, dreams, parallel dimensions, Bigfoot, Chupacabra, or any other weird and unexplained phenomena. We don't discriminate. If you're into paranormal mysteries that are scary, fun, and realistic, pick up a copy of my latest book, The R.I.P. Files, Case of the Demon Drums, the first in a series inspired by real cases that I, Beth Ann Campbell, worked on when I was a ghost hunter for nearly a decade. Case of the Demon Drums is available on Amazon and most online bookstores. And finally, we would so appreciate it if you would rate and review us on your favorite streaming platform and/or on YouTube. Thanks again, and remember, stay skeptical, but don't run towards the noise.